At exactly 3:22 in the morning, the motion light outside turned on. Nothing moved in the driveway. Nothing crossed the yard. And still, the light stayed on, as if something had walked up to the house and then simply decided not to leave. Welcome to Lunar Vault. Tonight, I have three true unexplainable horror stories for you. The first one happened to my older cousin Daniel, and for years he refused to even tell it properly because he thought the moment he said it out loud, it would sound made up. Daniel has always been the kind of person who rolls his eyes at ghost stories. He is practical to the point of being annoying sometimes. If a door closes by itself, he checks for a draft. If a light flickers, he blames wiring. If someone says they saw something impossible, his first thought is usually lack of sleep, stress, or somebody wanting attention. So when he tells this story now, he always starts by saying the same thing. I still don't know what this was, and I hate that I don't know. This happened about 4 years ago, when one of his co-workers asked him to stay at her house for a weekend and look after her old shepherd mix, Buster. She and her husband were driving out of state for a family thing, and because Buster was getting older and didn't do well in kennels, they wanted someone the dog already knew. Daniel had met the dog before. Friendly enough, big, heavy, sleepy, not dramatic. So he agreed. The house was out past the edge of town, not exactly isolated, but far enough that the houses were spaced out and the roads got darker the farther you went. It was one of those newer homes, built on a lot bigger than it needed, with a long gravel drive and a finished basement that took up almost as much space as the main floor. He got there Friday evening. His coworker showed him where the food was, how much to feed the dog, what doors to keep shut, and all the usual stuff. The basement, she said, didn't matter. He didn't need anything down there unless he wanted to use the extra bathroom. Nothing in the way she said it stood out. At least not then. The first night was completely normal until he went to sleep. He stayed in the guest room on the main floor, and Buster slept just outside the door in the hallway. Around 3 in the morning, Daniel woke up to the dog growling. Not barking, not whining, growling. A deep, steady sound, the kind that makes you sit up immediately because you know something has his full attention. Daniel opened the bedroom door and found Buster standing stiff at the top of the stairs that led down to the basement. His ears were back. The hair along his spine was standing up. He wasn't looking around nervously either. He was looking at one specific point down in the dark, like he could see something Daniel couldn't. Daniel turned on the stair light. The dog did not move. He called Buster's name. Nothing. He clapped once, then twice, and still the dog didn't even look at him. Just that low growl aimed down the stairs. Daniel said the first thing he felt was irritation more than fear. He assumed maybe a raccoon had gotten into the basement somehow, or maybe a mouse or something else the dog could hear moving around. So he grabbed his phone light, headed down the stairs, and looked around. Nothing. The basement was finished. There was a couch, a television, some storage shelves, an old treadmill, and a half bath. No signs of an animal, no broken window, no open door, nothing. The only thing he noticed was how cold it was. Not normal. The kind of cold that feels wrong because it doesn't match the rest of the house at all. He said it felt like walking into a space where the heat had never existed in the first place. He came back upstairs and the dog finally moved, but only enough to back away from the basement door. Buster would not go near it. Daniel shut the basement door and spent the rest of the night half awake on the couch. The next morning, everything seemed fine. The dog was normal, happy even. Daniel opened the basement door just to test him, and Buster walked right past it without the slightest reaction. Daniel even went downstairs again in daylight, and this time the basement felt completely normal. No unusual cold, no smell, no mess, nothing. If that had been the end of it, he would have written the whole thing off. But that night, it happened again, almost the exact same time. This time he woke to the sound of the dog barking so hard it sounded painful, like each bark was being forced out of him. Daniel ran into the hallway and found Buster in the same place, planted at the top of the basement stairs, body rigid, staring down into the darkness again. Only now the basement door was already open. Daniel was certain he had closed it. He actually checked before going to bed because the dog had unsettled him so much the first night. He turned the stair light on, and this time, before he even went down, he smelled something. Not rot exactly, not garbage, just a thick, awful smell that did not belong in a clean house. It was damp and sour and stale all at once, like something old had been sealed away and then suddenly disturbed. He went down anyway. At the bottom of the stairs, two framed family pictures that had been sitting on a shelf were lying face down on the floor. A lamp in the corner had been tipped over. One of the bar stools by the basement counter was on its side. No sign of a break in, no sign of an animal, no open window, nothing. And again the cold was intense. Daniel called Buster to come down, but the dog would not cross the doorway. He just stood at the top whining now, not barking anymore, which somehow felt worse. Daniel picked up the lamp, set the stool back upright, and got out of there. By morning, the smell was gone. The basement was warm again. And the dog followed Daniel downstairs like it was any other room in the house. When his coworker came back Sunday evening, Daniel told her the whole thing, expecting her to laugh. But she didn't. She got quiet almost immediately and asked him what time it happened. He told her both times were just after 3:20. She looked at her husband, then back at Daniel, and said, Buster used to do that as a puppy, only always at that same door. Always after 3 in the morning. Then one day he just stopped. Until that weekend. Daniel never stayed there again. And Buster, as far as they told him, never had another episode after that. What bothers him most is not that he saw anything, it's that the dog clearly did. The second story happened to me, and I still don't really know how to talk about it without sounding like I'm leaving something out. I was 26 at the time, living alone in a ground floor apartment in a complex that was honestly pretty nice. Clean, quiet, mostly older tenants, very little drama. The building itself was secure too. You needed a key fob to get into the main hallways, and each wing had cameras at the entrances. I liked living there because it felt safe in a boring kind of way. Nothing happened there. Until it did. At first, it was just noise in the hallway late at night. Not loud, just light footsteps running past my door every now and then. Quick little steps, almost like a kid running and then stopping. The first time I heard it, I looked through the peephole and saw nobody. That didn't really freak me out. Hallways echo weirdly, sound bounces. Somebody could have already gone around the corner. Then, maybe 3 nights later, I heard something outside my bedroom window. My window faced the courtyard, and because my apartment was on the ground floor, people could technically walk right up to it from outside. I was already half asleep when I heard soft giggling just beyond the glass. At first, I thought it actually was kids, which made no sense because there were no children living in my building. Still, that is where my brain went. Kids from somewhere nearby messing around in the courtyard, being annoying. I tapped the glass once and said, Go home. The giggling stopped. Then something tapped back from outside. 3 soft taps. I sat up immediately and pulled the curtain open. Nobody. No movement in the courtyard. No shadows, no one ducking behind anything, just the empty walkway and the little decorative tree near the center. I told myself someone must have moved away fast. The same thing happened the next night, and the night after that. Always late. Always the same faint giggling right outside the bedroom window, followed by nothing when I looked. Then, one afternoon, I got an email from the property manager asking me to stop by the office as soon as I got home from work. She said it was important. I assumed it was something simple, a payment issue, a maintenance thing. Instead, when I got to the office, she closed the door behind me and told me to sit down. A security staff member came in too, carrying a laptop. Neither of them looked casual about any of it. The manager asked whether I had noticed anything strange near my apartment recently. I told her about the hallway sounds and the giggling outside the window. She nodded like that confirmed something, then turned the laptop toward me. The footage was from the hallway outside my apartment door. On the screen, just after 2 in the morning, two small figures came into view. They were child sized, both wearing hooded coats. They walked right up to my door and stopped so close to it that for a second I thought the footage had frozen. But it hadn't. They stood there, completely still. The security guy fast forwarded. They remained there for almost 10 minutes, not pacing, not whispering, not looking around, just standing directly outside my apartment door with their heads slightly lowered. Then, after all that time, one of them reached up and jiggled the doorknob. The other one leaned in close, almost like it was listening through the door. Then both of them turned and moved away. Not ran, not sprinted, just sort of skipped. That was the word the manager used. And it was right. They skipped out of frame like children leaving a game. They checked the rest of the cameras in the building. Nothing. No footage of them entering the building. No footage of them leaving it. No trace of where they went after they disappeared from that hallway camera. That was the point when I actually started feeling afraid. The manager asked if I knew anything about the tenant who lived in my unit before me. I said no. She hesitated and then said, very carefully, that there had been some kind of tragedy involving that woman's children years earlier. She wouldn't say more than that. She looked like she regretted even bringing it up. A few nights later, I heard the doorknob, not the giggling, the actual doorknob, slowly turning. I got out of bed, went to the peephole, and saw the same two little figures standing there with their heads down. Then one of them spoke. The voice was small and soft. It said, Mom, we're home. I did not move. The other one said, please open the door. I remember my whole body going cold, not because I believed anything supernatural in that moment. I didn't. But because those words, in that voice, with those two tiny figures standing there in the middle of the night, sounded wrong in a way I can't explain. I told them I was calling the police. They started giggling. Not loud, just this breathy, childish laughing that somehow sounded almost happy I was scared. Then the doorknob started shaking harder. One of them bumped into the door with its shoulder once. Then again, I stood there, frozen with my phone in my hand, and when I looked through the peephole maybe 5 seconds later, they were gone. Police came. They found nobody in the hallway, nobody outside, nothing on any of the cameras except the same short stretch of footage showing the two figures at my door and then no clear sign of where they had gone. I moved out less than 2 months later. I still don't know what that was. I really don't. If it had just been the footage, I would say prank. If it had just been the voice, I would say sleep deprivation. If it had just been the window tapping, I would say coincidence. But all of it together still bothers me in a way I don't like to admit. The third story happened to a man I used to work with, named Aaron. And out of all three of these, this might be the one that unsettles me the most, because there is nothing overtly dramatic about it. No screaming, no shadow at the end of the hall, just sticky notes, bright pink ones. Aaron worked in retail at the time and lived alone in a small rental house on the edge of town. According to him, life was boring more than anything else back then. Work, sleep, repeat. So when he started finding notes on his car door after work, it felt strange but also kind of flattering. The first note said something simple: "You seem nice." The second said, "I hope you had a better day today." Then there were more, always stuck to the driver's side door handle, with the same bright pink paper and the same smiling little sticker at the bottom. Aaron assumed it had to be someone from work, playing a quiet flirtation game with him. He started leaving notes back. Nothing too intense, just light, playful replies. That went on for several days. Then, on his day off, he walked outside late in the morning and found another pink note on his car. That was when the whole thing changed. The note said, "You sleep on your left side." Aaron said that was the first moment it stopped being flattering and became terrifying, because his car was parked beside the house, under his bedroom window. He tried to tell himself it was still some stupid prank. Maybe someone he knew had looked in through the window somehow. Maybe a coworker knew where he lived and thought this was funny. So the next time he got a note, he left one back that said to stop. The notes turned mean after that. Not violent at first, just angry. "You were nicer before. Don't be rude to me. Then one day I can still come by." Aaron stopped responding completely. A couple nights later, he woke up because he thought he heard movement somewhere in the house. He got up with a baseball bat, turned on the lights in the living room, checked the kitchen, checked the back door, checked the front window. Nothing. He went back to bed feeling stupid. In the morning, there was a pink sticky note on the refrigerator. It said, "You can't lock me out forever." All the doors were still locked. All the windows were still locked. There was no sign of forced entry anywhere. That was when he finally called the police. They took a report, checked the outside, asked the usual questions, and concluded it was probably someone who knew him and somehow had access to the house. Aaron changed all the locks that same week. He stayed with a friend for a couple nights, came back, and for a while everything seemed over. No notes at work, no notes at the house, nothing. More than 2 months passed. Then, one morning, he opened the front door to leave for work and found a pink note stuck right in the center of it. "I guess you don't want to play anymore." That was it. No more after that. No person ever identified. No explanation for how the note got into the house that one night. No explanation for how whoever it was seemed to know his schedule so well. Aaron moved the following year. He is married now and has children and a completely different life, but he still hates pink sticky notes. Even seeing a stack of them on somebody's desk makes him visibly uncomfortable. He once told me what scared him most was not even the note on the fridge. It was the night he thought he heard movement in the house and went looking around with the bat. Because if someone really had been inside, then at some point he may have been standing only feet away from them without knowing it, and they had decided, for whatever reason, not to show themselves. So those were three true unexplainable horror stories. A dog terrified of a basement only at the same exact hour. Two child-sized figures asking to be let inside a locked apartment building. And a string of bright pink notes from someone who somehow crossed from the parking lot into a locked home. Maybe there are explanations for all of them. Maybe there always are. But some stories get worse when you try too hard to solve them. Because once you remove the easy answers, What stays behind is not always something you can live comfortably with. And sometimes the most unsettling thing of all is not what happened, it's the part that still doesn't make sense.